What's the Trend? I'm Emily Bradley, and did video kill the radio star? Well, today we're here with Anna Rose Charlatan, and we are going to talk about the radio. Hello, Anna. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to know, what is your background and what projects are you working on?
So I currently work at RTE. I have a show on RTE Pulse every Friday. It's called Friday Feeling, 4 to 6. I play hip hop and I talk to rappers. It's great. You should all definitely tune in. My background is like theatre, musical theatre. So I did that for a long time, lived in London for 5 years, which was awesome. And then came back to Dublin, and I'm now currently, as well as working in RTE, I also work in a film production company and I have a theatre company.
And what kind of stuff do you do with your theatre company?
Well, we did. We did a show. Our most recent show was like an evening of Lady Gregory plays. So Lady Gregory was the co-founder with W.B. Yeats of the Abbey Theatre, and not many people know this, but she was also a writer. So we put on 3 of her short plays, and we've been asked to revive one of them, the most famous one, which she co-wrote with Yeats, which is called Kathleen the Houlihan, and it's going to be on in the National Library very soon.
Sounds brilliant. So what made you want to get into radio?
It was kind of something that I really fell into. It was kind of funny. So when I finished university, I got an internship at the Discovery Channel, which was really cool. Obviously, Discovery Channel, lit times, so that was great. I did that, kind of did a bit of other production and all that kind of thing. And then when I got back to Dublin, I managed to get, I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I managed to get a meeting with a guy at RTE about something that wasn't radio, about something entirely different. And it was really tricky to set up the meeting because he's a really busy guy. So we were emailing back and forth, and I was like, can you do this day? And he was like, no. And he was like, can you do this day? And I was like, no. And one of the dates he suggested, I randomly replied that I was going to a concert that day, like a rap gig, these kind of joke rappers called Corrupt FM over in London. And he replied being like, oh, I didn't know that you were into rap music. I'll have to introduce you to Adam from RT Pulse, the radio station, when you come in. So I was like, okay, cool. That's definitely not going to happen. In my head, I was like, that's never going to happen. So I didn't even think about it. And we eventually got this meeting arranged. I went in, had it. We talked for an hour. It all went really, really well. And then eventually he was like, okay, it's 12 o'clock now. So I took that as my cue to be like, okay, well, it was really nice to meet you. Goodbye. I'll send you a follow-up email, this whole thing. And then he was like, no, you're not leaving. We're going to the radio centre. You have your meeting with Adam from RTE Pulse now. And I was like, oh no, I haven't prepared anything for this. I felt so sick, walking over to the radio centre. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say to this guy? And then we sat down in the canteen, waiting for him, and got a coffee or whatever. And I just felt so sick. I was like, I'm going to mess this up so much. And then he arrived over, and he was really cool looking, and he was wearing this tracksuit and a chain. He was wearing Yeezys, and he was like, all right, how's it going? And I was like, hello.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, either this is going to go terribly, or I just take the bull by the horns. So I just turned to him and I was like, I hear you're a big fan of Corrupt FM. And he was like, oh yeah, I love those guys. They're great. And he and we just talked about that and UK grime and different hip hop and stuff for 45 minutes. And then at the end of that conversation, he was like, hey, why don't you come in and do a show with us?
Okay.
And that was literally it.
So do you find that there are barriers to entering radio, or do you think in a lot of situations it's kind of all circumstance or luck attached to it? Do you think there's any methods to put yourself on the track to get into radio?
Well, I suppose you can do the normal things, you can make a voice reel, you can start off in college radio. Apparently that's a really good thing to do. I think in my circumstance, it was a case that I got a bit lucky. But yeah, like I said, if you make a voice reel, making demos and sending them in to people like RTE, another person who I spoke to who's on the same station as me sent in a demo and got a meeting and then got a show. And, building up on voluntary stations, if you can speak Irish, Radio na Lif is a great one, Radio Reraw. And yeah.
And do you find there is a lot of communication between the radio and the television? Do you find people who work on radio get to work in television, or?
I think a lot of people start out in radio with a view to moving into television, but they are two completely different things. We film all of our interviews on Pulse. Well, I do, and some of the other girls do, but some of the people who have people in for radio interviews, they're like, no, we're not filming it. This is an audio interview. We don't need to film it. But it does change the dynamic having the camera in the room.
I would imagine so. And does that actually affect the viewing or the listening rate if you have video or if you just have audio?
Um, I think I don't actually know the exact numbers for my station, but I do know that my some of my videos on the RTE Pulse, some of my interview videos on the RTE Pulse Facebook, they put them up on Facebook. Some of them have like thousands of views, and I don't think I have thousands of listeners. I think I'm in like hundreds of listeners, if
Yeah,
that. So I think, yeah, I think video is definitely a good component.
it's easier to share a video.
It's much easier to share a video, definitely. I mean, if you're going for social media, then I think video is definitely the way to go.
So, as an artist, what do you think the benefits are working in traditional media versus online content creation?
I suppose the generally recognized benefit of traditional media like RTE is the whole idea is more people will see it. You'll have more eyeballs and more ears if you're on something like RTE than you will, in theory, if you're on your own YouTube channel. The benefits of social media is we're so lucky as kind of artists and creatives, I think, to have all of the platforms that we have now. If you want to make a comedy sketch and put it on YouTube, you can. Literally, no one is stopping you. We no longer have to like wait around and be like, oh my God, will RTE like my sketch that I sent them? Who cares if they do or if they don't? You can just make it anyway and you can just put it on your online platforms.
Do you find it's easier to build your own brand as you as an artist working for a radio channel such as RTE, or do you think you would have more control making online content?
You definitely have more control making online content. I think, like, well, I mean, a very small example is I'm not allowed to swear on air when I'm on the airwaves on RTE, which is obviously fine. But if I was a kind of a I don't know, if I was like a blue brand who liked to swear and then I had to suddenly do this 2 hour show where I'm not allowed to say any swear words, then that's not fitting in with me. Whereas, on Instagram, I can say literally whatever I want, which is, I could say the N word if I wanted to. I would obviously then have to face the consequences for being racist if I were to do that, which obviously I would never do that. But I can. So, what you put on online, you've made that, you've put that out there. Any traditional media source, you will have an editor and you will have someone else who's telling you you can and can't do this. So the advantage of online content is definitely that you can be more true to your own personal brand.
And do you feel that you can reach a targeted audience on radio?
Well, the audience that we target on RTE Pulse is boys and girls, mostly boys 15 to 24. So it's light entertainment. And the reason we play mostly hip hop is because, well, I play mostly hip hop because I like it. We're also allowed to play dance music if we want, but that's what our demographic is listening to. So for me to target that demographic, all I have to do is get in some rapper that they like and they'll listen, you know?
And do you play, are the ads that you play targeted towards that demographic as well?
Well, it's actually interesting. We're a digital platform, so we don't have any ads at all.
Okay, okay,
Literally none. So, like,
okay.
yeah, 2FM, they have ads, and obviously they are all targeted. 2FM has a slightly different demographic. I think it's more, they have a female led lineup. So I think they're aiming more for like women 25 to 40, whereas we're younger boys and girls too, obviously, but I think it's more boys' ears that we have listening. But no, we have no ads.
And is there any way to get that data information of who is actually tuning in and listening?
Apparently, but I've never been shown the numbers, and I ask for them frequently. I'm like, how many people are listening to my show? I need to know. I know how many DMs I'm getting, I know how many texts I'm getting, but I don't know how many actual listeners I have.
It's the powers that be
The
can only
powers that be,
control.
exactly. Yeah, so if you're doing your own online content, you're like, okay, I have 500 views, I have 5 million views. Whereas, like, in order you have to be like, how many people are listening? And they're like, that's classified. I'm like,
Okay,
why?
okay, very good. And what social media platforms do you use to promote your brand?
Well, I was a bit of an anti-social media person up until very, very, very recently. When like I was like 12 and everyone had Bebo, I never had Bebo. I never had MySpace. I never wanted Snapchat. I barely even had Facebook. But over the past like 6 months to a year since I kind of started in radio, I've had so many people say to me like, "Oh, you need a bigger following. You need more people to do this." So I was like, okay, well, my options are Instagram and Twitter, I guess. Twitter makes me want to die. It's all just people calling each other Nazis. It's just horrible. I think it's a cesspit of just death and destruction. So I was like, Twitter is a no. Right, I'll have a go at Instagram. So I use Instagram quite a bit. I don't have a lot of followers. It's funny because I've been joking. I hit 3,000 Instagram followers today, which is not a lot.
You are
But
now an
like,
influencer.
so we've been joking like the whole time before we hit record on this about how I'm now an influencer. So yeah, I have 3,000 Instagram followers, and I get a lot of, the good thing about Instagram actually is that I followed a lot of musicians on there, and they're all sending me through their music, which is fantastic. So now I get to play all of their music on the radio because I met them on Instagram. So I'm happy about that.
So you working in the music industry has helped you target other people in the music industry.
Yeah, 100%. Because I have in my I have photos of myself, like, with other interview guests I've had on, and I have in my bio like that I'm on RTE, and loads of people send me their stuff, and it's great. I love it. I love to receive it.
And as you said, you don't know the data information, but do you have any control of the official RT Pulse kind of social medias? Do you ever get to do a takeover?
I can log in anytime I want. I can
Okay.
tell you the password. It's the same password for all of them. I'm not going to tell you, but I can technically log in anytime I want. But I think if I posted something really weird on there, they'd just delete it.
Okay, okay.
I have posted whenever I go in, the Twitter is always logged in on the computer in the studio, so I always post like, oh, Anna Rose Charlton on air now.
Okay. Do you ever use Twitter or social media when you are on air to ever get it in inspiration or
Um,
start a conversation?
Yeah, I do. Well, I always say at the top of my show, if you can tweet me at RTE Pulse, because like I said, the Twitter's always there in the studio for us to use, or you can follow me on Instagram. We don't have an RTE Pulse Instagram. Um, and what I do every show is I put up some polls, like stories. I pick like 3 news stories of the week, and I put up a poll asking a question. There's like yes or no questions. So one of the ones I did for my show last week was, do we like the idea of Robert Pattinson as Batman? And like, not that many people vote, like a couple of hundred people will vote, like 100 or 200 people will vote in the polls. And I guess the results are in. People hate the idea of Robert Pattinson as Batman because the photos of him came out in his batsuit this week. So I do that every week. And then, if someone texts me a request, I will give them a shout out.
Okay.
Or if someone tweets me a request or sends me a request on a DM, I'll give them a shout out.
And do you find the polls are what your followers are interacting with the most? Or have you ever done challenges, or is there anything specific that you have done on social media to try engage with your audience?
Um, the polls are the main thing I do to engage my audience. It feels so strange to say engage my audience because I can't even stress enough. I've literally gotten into Instagram in the last 2 months. Like before then, I had like 300 followers. Like I've been spamming everyone looking to get them to follow me, and it's working out okay so far. But yeah, the polls work really well, and then I also do like question boxes and stuff. And I'm like, if people, because everybody wants that, well, not everybody, but a lot of people want the kind of the moment of having their name read out on the radio. I know even now, if
Okay.
I like text into 2FM and they're like, hello to Anna Rose and Rathgar, I'm like, oh my God, fame. So I do that quite a lot. So I'm like, if you send me a message on Instagram, I'll say your name on air, and people love that. So it's cool.
So interaction with
Yeah,
your
loads of
audience.
interaction. Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
cool.
And finally, what do you think of the new social media platforms like TikTok? Do you think they'll have any longevity, or do you think anyone that is gaining traction will survive, or will they transfer onto a different platform?
Well, social media is a strange beast because it's very new.
Mm.
But I think the trends we've seen so far in different social media platforms was like, I mean, I mentioned a minute ago, like Bebo. Remember,
Yeah.
everyone was on Bebo for like a minute, and
Hmm.
now it literally doesn't exist anymore. Exactly the same with MySpace. Or does
I
Bebo still
suppose,
exist?
I believe Bebo got bought over by like someone from a like famous,
It did. It got bought by someone, but they didn't
by
manage to make it a success again,
yeah,
did
I'm
they?
pretty sure they were from like a famous boy band or something.
Stop,
I
really?
think so. But I suppose with the earlier social media platforms, they were more for actually networking and like
Yeah.
sharing communication with
Mm,
people, whereas n- modern social media allows for influencers. For example, YouTube allows online content, Twitter allows people to make threads. It's
yeah.
more of like a voice to a mass of people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, but I guess the wider point I was kind of trying to make is that a social media platform will like explode and then
Hmm.
die. So
Hmm.
I think Snapchat is a good example. So
Yeah.
Snapchat exploded and now it's kind of dying. Facebook is even on the decline.
Yeah.
It's getting smaller and smaller. Now Zuckerberg's fine because he bought Instagram and WhatsApp, so he's doing great. So I think all of these social media platforms have their moment in the sun and then they diminish. TikTok is an interesting one, because it's the biggest platform that's not run out of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So TikTok is a Chinese platform, and all the Silicon Valley platforms, like obviously the ones we were talking about, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they're all run by the same group of heads. TikTok isn't.
Yeah.
So something really random and really interesting that's happening on TikTok is a whole lot of people who are very right wing are
Mm.
going on TikTok
Mm.
because they know that the Silicon Valley people don't necessarily want them on their platform, so they're using TikTok. So it has a whole lot of really strange kind of, because it's Chinese, it's a slightly different animal to the rest of them.
It's almost lawless in the sense that there isn't control over it.
Yeah.
And there's no advertising on TikTok.
Mm.
So there's no monetary gain
No.
compared to YouTube. If you swear or if you
Yeah, there's no
say
swearing on YouTube. There's no this, there's no
distasteful
that.
thing, you're
Yeah, and
not
you
going.
can get demonetized. Also, you're not allowed to. It's strange because they're all American platforms. In America, they obviously have the First Amendment, but they're also private companies. So you're only allowed to say on the American social media platforms what they want to hear, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas TikTok is kind of more the Wild West. You can just go on there, like I was saying a couple minutes ago, you can just be like horrendously racist and people won't like it. And freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences, but their TikTok aren't going to do anything about it. They'll just let you say whatever you want. Whereas on the American social media platforms, they're like, they can ban you. TikTok doesn't do that quite as much. But I do think that TikTok is one of those things that it'll have its moment in the sun and then people will move on to something else.
Yeah, I do have 2 points. The first one is, you know, Facebook has consumed everything, for example, like Snapchat, and I think they were almost made to dissolve. They just
Mm,
kind of absorb everyone. Kind of the way that
yeah.
Instagram then started having the
Well,
stories.
Well, Zuck tried to buy Snapchat, and Evan Spiegel, who's the CEO of Snapchat, wouldn't sell to him. He's now
Mm.
married to Miranda Kurt. That's why I know something about him, because I like Miranda Kurt. I'm a fan of her skincare brand, Cora. Um, so Zuckerberg tried to buy Snapchat. He offered Evan Spiegel like $4 billion for it, and he wouldn't sell to him. So Zuckerberg was like, "Okay, fine, I'm going to destroy you." And he put the stories on Instagram, and he basically made Instagram the quasi Snapchat platform, and
Yeah.
Snapchat basically died.
And so my second point I was going to say was, TikTok is almost a rebirth of Vine.
Yeah.
Were you ever on Vine?
I wasn't, I don't have an account on it, but I watched a couple of Vines, and
I
I'm
feel
familiar.
like we were kind of past the age of
Yeah, we were
Vine.
weird age. We're too old for we were too young for Vine and too old for TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And my point was, do you think Vine died because uh, teenagers have a short attention span? I feel like how people play down to millennials. I feel like I just did that to teenagers. But do you think that maybe they get tired of something and then as they get older, they don't stay with the platform and that's why they die?
Yeah, it could well be a case of kind of, I think something that very on on the whole vein of teenagers and social media, the thing that is killing Facebook is everybody has their like auntie on it, and their
Mm-hmm.
granny and their mum is on there. So it's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my god, why would I be on here? It's all just like my weird like Auntie Cheryl being like, how are
Yeah.
you doing? XXXX. Tell
Yeah.
your mother I say hello. Like, because the boomers have invaded Facebook, it's no longer cool. So
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of,
I also feel like the face of Facebook also seems really dated. Like if you
yeah,
go to Bebo or you look at MySpace, it seems
they
you
look
can.
like they're from another. They look like they're from a different millennium.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, no, they're not
they're
actually.
not yet.
No.
Not quite.
Did they exist in the 90s? I don't think they did.
No,
No.
no. But yes, I do think it is dated, and
It is dated and it's full of boomers and nobody wants to be on there. So once the boomers infiltrate TikTok, that's when the teens will leave.
okay, and
That's
that's
my theory.
that's what it takes. For any boomers out there,
Boomers. So
no,
the things on Facebook, boomers and pyramid schemes. I cannot tell you how many people I get messaging me being like, hey chick, have you ever considered selling essential oils? I'm like,
Oh no.
no, I have not considered selling essential oils. Take your snake oil elsewhere.
Okay.
Boomers and pyramid schemes, they ruined Facebook. You heard it here first. Hot take, scalding hot take.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Anna, for coming on my podcast, and it was great
No,
having
no worries. Thank you. I'll come back anytime,
a
Emily.
candid conversation. Thank you for listening to What's the Trend. I'm Emily Bradley, and head over to Gourmet Host's Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to follow us. Tune in next time to What's the Trend.